Howdy, I'm John Mark Dempsey, and here we are with Mario Villarino, who is
Thank you for having me again.
Our Hopkins County Ag Extension agent, AgriLife agent, and today we're going to be talking about trees.
Yes, very important topic when it comes to landscape trees. Yes,
And Mario put out a news release recently about trees. Of course, other parts of Texas were much harder hit.
Right.
Recently by storms, but we had a significant amount of tree damage.
It has been, especially because the amount of rain. You know, when you suffer storms and a lot of precipitation come in, that soil comes loosen and creates some instability on the root systems. That's what we have seen nearby, and of course the consequence of time. I was just talking to a couple of people that call the office related to this, is that sometimes trees are a little challenging because they suffer the impact and the consequences are seen years after the fact. So a lot of people buy properties and they don't know about the background of that tree, and they just think it's good to go for many, many years, and it's been going through a lot of suffering, and especially the cycle of dry and wet, and that creates really challenges sometimes.
Your news release covers a lot about planting new trees and then taking care of the new trees, and I want to get to that, but what should people do who live on property where they do have well-established, what we think are well-established older trees, to take care of them and to make sure that they stay healthy?
Right, it's called monitoring.
Sure.
A lot of this is actually keeping an eye on what physical properties change that bark, the cortex on the trees, that actually can potentially jeopardize it and get the entrance to insects and different environmental conditions that actually terminate the life of the tree.
Yeah.
So monitoring them, seeing the changes, and maintain an understanding of that canopy protection. A tree really suffers a lot when they have less than 30% of the canopy on place. So that really is going to make an impact on them, either by wind or fire or any other negative effects.
When they have lost 30% of their canopy.
If 30% is remaining or less, that tree is really in suffering.
Oh,
they
I see.
need 30% of that to maintain their life.
I see.
So when you have a storm or a wind or a fire, and you see that the remaining canopy is less than 30%, you're really compromising the future of that tree.
And by canopy, you mean just the area covered
Yes.
by the branches and the leaves?
Perfect. And one way to see it is by taking pictures sporadically from that tree. If you're really watching them throughout the time, you can take a photo every year and see how that progress is happening. Because tree lives for a long time and get impacted by time being
Sure.
affected.
They don't live forever.
They don't live forever, and sometimes we do want to have them to live forever, but the senescence is part of the problem. They start falling and losing trees. I was in a couple of places recently. They actually didn't keep an eye on. They wanted to maintain that feeling of having trees around, but they have not actually replaced them yet. And it's one of those recommendations that we do. If you like to have trees, make sure that you have younger trees coming in, taking place of those older trees. That's why it's so critical that you keep an eye on that.
What are the most common native trees?
Pecans. Pecans is probably one of those, and of course the post oak. Now the challenge with the oaks is they're slow growing trees.
Yeah.
A lot of people buy properties to put the houses around post oaks that are quite old by the time they get in, but they don't look old. And they suffer really by the human effect of being around them. They're very sensitive to human actions. So,
Such as what?
roads, walking, playing underneath them.
Really?
The post oaks are extremely sensitive to that compared to other trees. But like I said, most of the people buy the place or select an area because they have the trees already and they're older trees. So once you get into that situation, all you can do is keep an eye on them from insects and borers and situations like that eventually will take their lives.
But human activity around the tree.
But these particular trees are usually being grown in forest areas,
Right.
that they've been by themselves for many, many decades,
Yeah.
and that's why they survive. So by the time that you start urbanization or making houses and all that, you're already affecting their biology and their dynamics. Now you might not see it right away, because trees live for a long time and they slowly decline. Until eventually something takes them.
Do you all, and not necessarily you, but does AgriLife have people who can come out and have a look at your trees and maybe give you some advice?
Some of them, of course, I do that because I like trees. It's not uncommon for me to come see places and evaluate trees, but actually an arborist is a professional that actually can come over and fix trees that are broken or amendment of limbs and whatnot. That is a little different than just looking at the health of a tree.
Now, are you talking about someone who is a commercial?
They are. The majority of them are going to be commercial professionals. Just like anybody else on the field. They come over for a fee and evaluate the tree. But sometimes that is very well worth it because a landscape tree is sometimes the keystone of the landscape. Trees have that characteristic. People like that tree and they might pick that place.
Not to create too much work for you, but you're available to kind of give a general.
So, absolutely. There's something that has to do, especially when it comes to be making a decision if it's worth or is the time that an arborist has to be involved. I'm glad to do those kind of decisions for you.
We're out of time for now, but we'll continue this conversation.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Mario Villarino is our Hopkins County AgriLife Extension Agent, and I'm John Mark Dempsey. This is KSST.
Thank you for having me.